Good afternoon, Desmond. I'm excited to teach you about analog clocks.
Woohoo!
Let's jump in. In this lesson, we're gonna focus on times that end in o'clock, like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and 3 o'clock. These are all times that end in o'clock. The thing they have in common is that the minutes are both zeros. Take a look at the hands on this analog clock. Desmond, which number is the minute hand pointing to?
The 12.
Super! Whenever the minutes are both zeros, the minute hand will point straight up at 12, like it is here. All the clocks in this lesson will be like this. So all of these times will end in o'clock, like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and so on. But to figure out the hour, we gotta look at the hour hand. Desmond, which number is the hour hand pointing at?
The number 3.
That's right. Since the minute hand points straight up at 12 and the hour hand points at 3, this clock reads 3 o'clock. Here we can see 3 o'clock on a digital clock and on an analog clock. We know that the hour is 3. We can see this because the hour hand points toward the 3. And whenever the minute hand points straight up toward the 12, that means that the minutes are at 0. I'll explain why it works like this in the next lesson. For now, let's look at a few more examples that end in o'clock, like this one. Desmond, what time does the analog clock read?
5 o'clock.
Great job! You're doing really well, Desmond. Let's do a few more, just to get a bit more practice. Here's the next one. Desmond, what time does the analog clock read?
7 o'clock.
Excellent! Okay, we'll do 2 more. Here's your next clock. Desmond, what time does the analog clock read?
10 o'clock.
Wonderful! Let's do one last one. It might seem a bit tricky, but I know you can figure it out. Here's your last clock. Desmond, what time does the analog clock read?
12 o'clock.
Terrific! You're learning so much about analog clocks. I want to show you a different analog clock. Here's an example of an alarm clock. It's an analog clock, just like we've been looking at, but there's something missing on it. Desmond, what's missing on this clock?
Some of the numbers.
That's right, some of the numbers are missing. This clock only has the numbers 3, 6, 9, and 12 on it. Sometimes analog clocks only have some numbers on them. And sometimes clocks don't have any numbers on them. This clock doesn't have any numbers at all. These ones take more practice, but you'll get there. I want us to get some practice working with other clocks, like this one. We'll play one more game in this lesson. For each round, I'll give you a clock and ask you to tell me the time. Here's an example. We want to know where the hour hand is pointing, but the number has disappeared. We can still figure out the time though. It's just past the 9, so it must be 10. That means that the time is 10 o'clock. With this game, you'll have to be a detective to figure out the times. Let's give it a try.
Yay!
Let's start with round 1. Desmond, what time does the analog clock read?
4 o'clock.
Correct, it's 4 o'clock. Okay, let's move on to round 2. Here's your next clock. Desmond, what time does the analog clock read?
7 o'clock.
That's right, it's 7 o'clock. Okay, let's move on to round 3. Here's your next clock. Desmond, what time does the analog clock read?
2 o'clock.
Terrific, it's 2 o'clock. Okay, let's move on to round 4. Here's your next clock. Desmond, what time does the analog clock read?
11 o'clock. Or 11 o'clock.
Wonderful, it's 11 o'clock. Okay, let's move on to round 5. Here's your next clock. Desmond, what time does the analog clock read?
8 o'clock. I was thinking
Fantastic, it's 8 o'clock. Desmond, since you're doing so well with this game, I want to give you a couple of extra challenging bonus rounds.
Woohoo!
For these last 2 rounds, I'm gonna give you clocks that don't have any hours written on them at all. Let's give it a try. We'll start with this clock. Desmond, what time does the analog clock read?
1 o'clock.
Fantastic, it's 1 o'clock. Okay, I've got one more for you. Here's your last clock. Desmond, what time does the analog clock read?
5 o'clock.
Wonderful, it's 5 o'clock. Wow, you did fantastic, Desmond.
Woohoo!
You got every single one of my questions right. You're a clock reading machine. Congratulations! You've earned the Detective Award for reading clocks with missing numbers. We learned quite a lot about telling time, but you made it all the way to the end of the lesson. I'm very impressed. There are also some worksheets of practice problems for this lesson, which can be printed out. In a couple of the worksheets, you're gonna see a type of problem we haven't done yet. You'll be given a time, and you'll be asked to draw the hands on the clock to make it show the right time. For these problems, remember that the minute hand is longer, and the hour hand is shorter. So always make sure to make the minute hand longer and the hour hand shorter, like we have here. I hope you have fun with the worksheets. The next lesson in this course is called Analog Clocks, Half Hours. We'll look at times on an analog clock where the minutes are 30. I hope you enjoyed today's lesson. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Have a great day afternoon.